Greetings, one and all, once again, back to Exploring Arda, a Tolkien-centered podcast where I am your host, Jackson, and usually I go through a bunch of Tolkien's works other than Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, as you guys have heard me say countless times, but I thought today would be a different, it's an exception because of March 25th being, in Lord of the Rings terms, the destruction of the ring and the defeat of Sauron. So I thought it would just kind of be fitting for me to just kind of like read through pretty much the destruction of the ring in the book, even though it's, I read through a bunch of Silmarillion based stories, so all the big histories of Middle Earth and whatnot. I figured it'd be fun just to read through the destruction of the ring, and yeah, so that's kind of like the main premise of this episode. So it will be a little shorter, but I thought it'd be fun as kind of like a celebratory thing for the day, because there's September 22nd, which is Hobbit Day, and then there's Destruction of the Ring, and I'm sure there's countless other dates that are really important, but I feel like Destruction of the Ring is very important. So I'll actually be reading from this kind of like the special edition book of Lord of the Rings here, where it's basically like Tolkien's illustration kind of scattered throughout the story. Has this really cool elvish inscription on the side, which is very, very fun. And I probably should have marked the pages here because I have to find it now. But so I'll be reading from here, and hopefully you guys enjoy it to hear about the destruction of the ring, March 25th. Hooray, everybody! So I think let's get into the reading really quick. So I think here we go. After this. Okay, so Sam got up. He was dazed, and blood streaming from his head dripped into his eyes. He groped forward, and then he saw a strange and terrible thing. Gollum, on the edge of the abyss, was fighting like a mad thing with an unseen foe. To and fro he swayed, now so near the brink that almost he tumbled in, now dragging back, falling to the ground, rising, and falling again. And all the while he hissed, but spoke no words. The fires below awoke in anger, the red light blazed, and all the cavern was filled with a great glare and heat. Suddenly Sam saw Gollum's long hand draw upwards to his mouth. His white fangs gleamed, and then snapped as they bit. Frodo gave a cry, and there he was, fallen upon his knees at the chasm's edge. But Gollum, dancing like a mad thing, held aloft the ring, a finger still thrust within its circle. It shone now as if verily it was wrought of living fire. "Precious, precious, precious!" Gollum cried. "My precious, oh my precious!" And with that, even as his eyes were lifted up to gloat on his prize, he stepped too far, toppled, wavered for a moment on the brink, and then with a shriek he fell. Out of the depths came his last wail, "Precious!" and he was gone. There was a roar and a great confusion of noise. Fires leaped up and licked the roof. The throbbing grew to a great tumult, and the mountain shook. Sam ran to Frodo and picked him up and carried him out the door. And there upon the dark threshold of Sammath Nar, high above the plains of Mordor, such wonder and terror came on him that he stood still forgetting all else, and gazed as one turned to stone. A brief vision he had of swirling cloud, and in the midst of its towers and battlements, tall as hills, founded upon a mighty mountain throne, above immeasurable pits, great courts and dungeons, eyeless prisons sheer as cliffs, and gaping gates of steel and adamant. And then all passed. Towers fell and mountains slid, walls crumbled and melted, crashing down. Vast spires of smoke and spouting steams went billowing up, up, until they toppled like an overwhelming wave, and its wild crest curled and came foaming down upon the land. And then at last over the miles between there came a rumble, rising to a deafening crash and roar. The earth shook, the plain heaved and cracked, and Orodruin reeled. Fire belched from its riven summit. The skies burst into thunder, searing with lightning. Down with lashing whips fell a torrent of black rain. And into the heart of the storm, with a cry that pierced all other sounds, tearing the clouds asunder, the Nazgul came, shooting like flaming bolts, as caught in the fiery ruin of hill and sky, they crackled, withered, and went out. "Well, this is the end, Sam Gamgee," said a voice by his side. And there was Frodo, pale and worn, and yet himself again. And in his eyes there was peace now, neither strain of will, nor madness, nor any fear. His burden was taken away. There was the dear master of the sweet days in the Shire. "Master!" cried Sam, and fell upon his knees. In all that ruin of the world for the moment he felt only joy, great joy. The burden was gone. His master had been saved. He was himself again. He was free. And then Sam caught sight of the maimed and bleeding hand. "Your poor hand," he said, "and I have nothing to bind it with, or comfort it. I would have spared him a whole hand of mine, rather. But he's gone now, beyond recall. Gone forever." "Yes," said Frodo, "but do you remember Gandalf's words? Even Gollum may have something yet to do. But for him, Sam, I would not have destroyed the ring. The quest would have been in vain, even at the bitter end. So let us forgive him, for the quest is achieved, and now all is over. I am glad you are here with me, here at the end of all things, Sam." And I'm actually going to switch over to this other very important, I think very important text in the beginning of the next chapter here, so I'm kind of skipping ahead just for you guys to know. And it says here, "The realm of Sauron is ended," said Gandalf. "The ring-bearer has fulfilled his quest." And as the captains gazed south to the land of Mordor, it seemed to them that, black against the pall of cloud, there rose a huge shape of shadow, impenetrable, lightning-crowned, filling all the sky. Enormous it reared above the world, and stretched out towards them a vast threatening hand, terrible but impotent, for even as it leaned over them, a great wind took it, and it was all blown away and passed, and then a hush fell. And yeah, so that's basically the the final moments of the ring and the defeat of Sauron. So a couple cool things that like when I was reading back through it, it's really, really cool, where obviously a lot of us have seen the movie version, or I should say most, if not all of us, have seen the movie version, where Gollum is wrestling with an invisible foe, as the book says here. So he's basically wrestling with Frodo, trying to get back the ring, so they're both pretty much so engulfed and so obsessed with the ring that they're both fighting for it. And pretty much what Frodo tells Sam is that if it wasn't for Gollum, he would never have destroyed the ring in the first place. Or I guess, like, in the last moments, Frodo would not have destroyed the actual ring because it had already overtaken him so much. And since he was already in Orodruin or Mount Doom, then that hold on him was, the greatest of all the moments. So it's crazy how that happens. The destruction of the tower is very cool, of Barad-dûr. Pretty much all the orcs and everything else in the land of Mordor is basically kind of getting drowned with darkness and fire and all that stuff, which is very cool. But I think just the whole thing of Frodo saying, yes, quest would have been in vain even at the bitter end, so let us forgive him. So I think it's a really cool moment of Frodo's very forgiving self, I suppose. Just recently, as I have been rereading Lord of the Rings this year, when he was fighting with Boromir, even he forgives Boromir in the end, even after he tried to steal the ring from him. It's the same thing with this, where it's, if it wasn't for Gollum, obviously, as I've said. And I think, as I mentioned before, I kind of skipped ahead, and this is when Gandalf is with pretty much the Men of the West here, trying to fight against the swarm of Mordor, but this is obviously when, Sauron is defeated and whatnot. I thought it was really cool where pretty much Sauron's, I guess, like, not quite his physical form, but his essence, his presence pretty much is vanquished, but I don't really think the spirit of Sauron is actually destroyed for good. Like, it's not, like, he put so much of his spiritual power into the ring, obviously, so I feel like with this, his spirit is being taken with the wind. So when it says, for even as it leaned over him, this this hand, this arm of Sauron, a great wind took it and it was blown away and passed. So like this spirit is basically like, the way that I picture it is that Sauron's spirit isn't killed, so to speak, or slain. It's more of just like an empty, voided spirit that just wanders around Middle Earth forever and ever, which is probably for Sauron is torture enough, because he can never rise to power again, because so much of his will was put into the ring. So I thought it was really, really cool when I was kind of like rereading this, just like today. I was like, that's really interesting. But let me know what you guys think about that whole theory and whatnot. I'm sure everybody has a bunch of theories on that. And like I said, this book has some illustrations. So like this was Tolkien's, let's see if I can turn it here. This was Tolkien's version. It's called The Arm of Sauron here. And so it's kind of like reaching over that plane where everybody else is at. Yeah, but that's kind of like all I really had. I just wanted to make a cool short video of me reading through The Destruction of the Ring. And I thought it was very, very cool. Yeah. Otherwise, hopefully you guys have a good Destruction of the Ring day. I don't know. I just thought it'd be kind of fun. Be sure to check out the rest of my channel. I do a bunch of things now, so I keep continuing exploring Arda because that's kind of like my main thing on the channel. Be sure to also check out my Narnia series. That's been pretty fun, Through the Wardrobe. So I've pretty much been reading the first chapters of the first book of Narnia because it's a fun story to kind of go through. So hopefully I'll get through, I don't know, 2 or 3 of them this year, maybe. It's my goal. Also be sure to check out my Over the Garden Wall series. So if you guys are here for Over the Garden Wall and Exploring Arda, or things like that, combination of both, yeah, be sure to check out Over the Garden Wall because I'm doing a deep dive series and that's very, very fun. And lastly, just be sure to check out my book. It's called The Lands of Ordia, Power of Heaven, and it's on Amazon. I'm almost finished writing the second book, first draft, so it's been very fun, and it's been a long journey for that too, but I would appreciate it if you guys checked it out. And I think with all that kind of out of the way being said, I think that's all I have for this episode. So yeah, be sure to stay tuned for another episode. There you go. And may the light of Elbereth be with you all. Farewell.